whether you're, at an agency, whether you're a business owner, this framework pretty much will help you dive into what's going on with your marketing. And you would be shocked at how some very minor conversion changes on the front end can massively impact numbers on the back.
Everybody thinks a high click-through rate is best, right?
Mhm.
That like people that don't know this game, they're like, man, I just want like a 4% unique click-through rate. If I had that, everything would be cheaper. Audience targeting matters so little now. If I were going to say a very hot take, it's that welcome to episode 30 of the Ad Talk podcast. We made it, guys. We're episode 30. We made it to 30 episodes.
Does that mean that this episode's going to be dirty?
It is the dirty 30 because today we are talking about how to diagnose the real problem in a failing ad account. So this is big because this is essentially like, Caleb, our auditing framework. How do you quickly diagnose and then obviously fix what is stopping an ad account from scaling, what is causing an ad account to fatigue? That is what we're talking about today. So obviously, quick things, intros. Matthew's here. What's up, Matthew?
What is up, guys? Good to see you guys.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Caleb.
What's up, guys? Good to see you. Thanks for listening. Caleb here.
Yeah, we're stoked. We're going to get into kind of really actually how we really do look at ad accounts at ad class between the 34 plus client ad accounts that we have currently on the roster. And then also just when we're auditing, I mean, we talk to a lot of people that we don't end up working with. Either we're not the right fit, or maybe they've already got a great team and things are crushing for them. We're not going to try to sell if that's the case, but we get to see a lot of ad accounts in action. And so what we're going to look at today is, what do we look for typically when an ad account is stuck or not scaling the way people want them, want the ad account to scale, and how do we fix those things? And what's funny is, I think if you were to ask, it's one of those weird dilemmas in advertising, is if you're to ask like 100 businesses if they're happy with their current ad account, I would say like probably 95 of them would say no, and maybe 5 would say yes. I don't know if you agree with that, Caleb, but it seems like no one's ever really happy with where they're currently at. They always have a goal with where they want to go.
Yep.
So
That's pretty spot on. And this framework it's huge because it's something we use all the time, constantly, not just in agency prospecting, but once a client does come on, we're constantly diagnosing new things over the lifetime of a client. And so whether you're at an agency, whether you're a business owner, this framework pretty much will help you dive into what's going on with your marketing and quickly pinpoint like, where's my issue and what do I do about the issue once I've identified it. So it should be really helpful.
Love it. And we're going to actually go through a real case study today too. We had a client come to us recently, I think 2 months ago, and they had cheap leads from their ads. They had good CTR. The ad account actually looked pretty good from like a top of funnel metrics standpoint, but they weren't scaling. They didn't quite know how to scale past where they were currently at. Every time they'd increase budget, they'd hit some sort of wall. And it becomes like this thing when you hit a wall in your head, you're like, I just can't scale past this. It's just not possible. But what's interesting is that every time we've ever seen that, it's just they don't know the right levers to pull past where they're at. So we're going to talk about what we did with that ad account to actually enable us to scale past where they were at, and how we diagnose the real issues, fix like the back end of the traffic problem, and help them hit their best week ever from paid traffic just last week. So that's what we're going to talk about in the second half of this episode. But first, let's get into the actual like diagnostic process we go through, the framework that we go through each time. And we'll start kind of at the very beginning, which it's kind of ironic actually, because in paid advertising, you would think you would start at the ad at the very beginning, but what's actually before the ad for us anyways, when we're looking at a brand, is the offer, right? So an offer, meaning the thing that the person is selling or the business is selling, is the most important piece of the advertising puzzle. I mean, the offer is everything. So Caleb, I want to pass to you, talk about what you see between like an offer that works and doesn't work, and kind of how that affects the health of the ad account in general.
For sure. Yeah. So I think one of the things that, again, we have an advantage as an agency is we get to see a lot of different niches and a lot of different offers in different niches. And so one of the things that is almost kind of a little bit of a cheat code is we kind of start to see industry trends as they're happening and as they're unfolding. Whereas if you're just a business owner, sometimes you might be struggling or like having a bad month or even like a bad year, and you're wondering, man, am I the only one that's going through this? Like, am I the one person that just cannot figure this out right now? And as an agency, we kind of actually get to see, are they the only person that's going through this? Because, I mean, like right now, I can think of there's probably 6 or 7 different real estate clients that we're currently working with, which gives us, and they're in different niches within real estate, but it gives us a look into like what's happening, like what, and what do we actually see working. So first off, I would say that there's kind of this element of starting to actually understand what's happening in the marketplace, and whether that means like asking around to your local network, if that means going to some events and talking with people and figuring out like what do we see working and what's not. But that's kind of like one of the first things, at least I like to look for, is just like, do I know anybody else in like this general niche that is having any kind of success? Or on the flip side of that, have I seen this niche in particular start to really decline? So that's one of the first things that I really look at. Um, After that, really what I'm looking for then is uniqueness, right? Okay, does
Mm.
this offer feel different than what everybody else out there is saying, or have I seen this a million times before, right? So does the offer feel unique is another really big one that I start to look for. And so if you're researching like keywords that are similar to your offer online and you're seeing other people pop up constantly, it could be a good sign, because it could show, well, it's working, but it could also show like, if there's a lot of people doing this, do you think that your offer is going to stand out, right? Or how can you stand out? One other thing that I'll mention, and then I'll maybe pass it to Matthew and see kind of what your thoughts are here. But after kind of getting a feel for the marketplace and then looking at uniqueness, the other thing that I'm looking for is like, one, is it just a really good product? Do they have a good service? Is the fulfillment there? Do I feel like the price that they're selling for aligns with the value that's coming from the thing that's being offered? Because that's another thing that's going to kill you, right? Is if you just don't have a good product. And I'll pass it to Matthew after this, but I think in the AI like wave that's coming, is the people with bad products will continue to kind of get like fizzled out, right, in this industry. And so I think, anyways, all I'm trying to get at is for offer, check the marketplace, check to see if you have something that really feels unique, and then also make sure that you actually truly are fulfilling and you're helping your customers and that the price is aligned with that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think those are all pretty key. I think one other thing which kind of comes into the offer, but is maybe more in the back end as well, is like the sales like process, sales team especially. I've seen some amazing sales teams not work because of an offer. So if you need to make a good alignment between what the offer is and what the sales team is trying to accomplish as well.
Yeah.
If you can have that planetary alignment of really solid, unique offer that is giving value, and then a sales team that knows exactly how to pitch and sell it, then that's going to really do a lot of the heavy lifting as well.
For sure.
For sure. I think the big takeaway from like us looking at the offer first when we're auditing an account or jumping into an account is that no ad can ever fix a weak or an unclear offer. And so it's not to say that your business is doomed if your offer is weak or unclear, but you need somebody to help you rework the offer until it is clear and until it will cut through the noise of all of the competition that is selling something that sounds just like yours. And I think that's what Caleb you were alluding to, just like it is this unique, right? And what's funny is like the positioning of the offer is what can make it unique also, right?
For
Like
sure.
there's no difference between somebody that like let's take Poppy and Olipop as an example, right? Two brands that are pretty popular right now. Everyone's talking about. Poppy had a huge acquisition
Hey,
recently.
popular.
Oh yeah, they're popular. Um, like they're the same product essentially, right? Two sides of the same coin. They're the same product, but the way that they position their offer and go to market is different. And I think we saw Poppy kind of win the entire battle, even though Olipop, in my like, I knew about Olipop before I knew about Poppy, right? And the brand reputation kind of switched over time because one of them kind of went a different direction with how they positioned their offer, right?
Mhm.
And so you don't have to have the most unique product, but you do need to understand how to switch the positioning and make your offer very clear. What do you do and how do you do it differently from everybody else, basically?
Yep. Spot
So
on.
anyways, that's part one. So the 5-part ad diagnostic framework is not even ads itself. It's the offer, but you have to start there. And we're to the point now, we're at the point now, Caleb, I think you would agree, which is like one of our core tenets of ad class is we scale great brands with paid advertising. We don't want to work with brands who have not done the hard work of figuring out how is my offer and product different and better than everyone else's. And not from an ego standpoint, but from a I know that if this gets in front of the right people, they will want this,
Mhm.
because we will solve real problems for them. That is kind of the core of this, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Spot on.
Sweet. Awesome. We're going to go on to part two of the 5-part diagnostic framework that we run through to help scale ad accounts and kind of fix the cap on ad accounts. And that is actually the funnel. So we talk about the funnel in the way that we go from nobody knowing about you to all the way through to conversion. And we look a lot at the funnel because it's actually kind of the main educating mechanism to show people exactly what you have to offer from a business standpoint. And so from an like again, we're going to get into the ad account itself, but these are all the prerequisites that we have to go through before we get into the actual ad. So yeah, let's talk funnel a little bit, Caleb. What do you where do you want to start there?
One of the most important things that every marketing team is like has to focus on. And it's something that we internally at Ad Class have kind of coined as the throughput calculator. And I think that this is just it's absolutely vital to marketing success. So what it is basically you as a marketer sitting down and looking at every single step from ad click all the way down to when the person makes that final purchase and what happens at each step along the way and what are those conversion rates of those steps?
Yeah.
Because if you can understand that, what it allows you to do inside of a simple spreadsheet is start to play with the numbers and say, okay, if my landing page maybe converted at 20% instead of 15%, how does that affect everything down funnel? Right. And you would be shocked at how some very minor conversion changes on the front end can massively impact numbers on the back. So I would say the very first thing with the funnel is just clearly understand it, write down each step, understand the conversion for each step and what the conversion needs to be to get the end result that you want. If you know, hey, I really want to like if you're selling a $10,000 service and you say, hey, I want to make sure that we're paying $1,500 to get a $10,000 customer, then reverse engineer the funnel math to say what does each step need to look like to wind up with a $1,500 customer. And if that sounds confusing or if it sounds like something that's like you can't wrap your head around that, just find one of us on Instagram, DM us, go to our website, submit a form. We'll send you a throughput calculator example that you can kind of play around with because that's in my opinion step one. Just understand it.
Absolutely. And you can even comment on this wherever you're seeing this, just comment calculator, we'll send it to you. What you're describing, Caleb, is like you're finding the bottleneck,
Yep.
right? Essentially. So in like really to break it down in layman's terms, if you send 100 people to your website, like to your funnel, right? So let's say, you get 100 clicks on your ad. What we're really trying to figure out is of those 100 clicks, what do they go on to do in the funnel? So
Mhm.
if the first step is collecting lead, right? Getting like their email address. If you know that that landing page converts at 20%, now we know you get 20 leads for every 100 clicks you send. The next step in the funnel might be to book a call, right? Let's just keep it simple. Let's say that 10% of those 20 leads go on to book a call. Now we
Mhm.
know we get 2 booked calls for every 100 clicks that we send. And so what Caleb is saying is essentially the very first thing we ever look for when we're looking at an ad account is not actually how are the ads performing, but it's how much are we paying for the conversion, the goal that we have in this ad account. And so if it's booked calls and we send 100 clicks and get 2 booked calls, now I can ask myself, how much is a click? Right?
Mhm.
Well, if the ads are crushing and they're $1 a click, now I know I spent $100 to get 2 calls. The reality is we probably spent closer to 500 to 1,000 for those clicks. Just if it's a high ticket offer, and so our calls are probably closer to 250 to $500, right? But that makes all the difference. Is how
Mhm.
they go through that funnel. To Caleb's point, using a calculator, putting that all down on paper is the very first step for understanding are my ads actually doing what I want them to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just it's so crazy. It still honestly will like shock me sometimes. And I've been looking at these numbers for years, but it'll still shock me sometimes when I jump into like looking at a funnel and understanding each step and I say, okay, what if we tweak this one step to go from this rate to this rate? And then you suddenly see, oh my gosh, we just cut our booked call costs in half if we could just accomplish this thing on the front, right? And it's like those kind of things will really be eye-opening for you if you take the time to just understand, okay, if I can make this one step better, how much better does it affect everything else down the road?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So, yeah. But anyways, that I would say is step one, is understanding the funnel. And we could go way more in depth because there's so many different kinds of funnels, right? Like
For
we could
sure.
talk about, what does a live webinar look like versus a VSL funnel, lead magnets with a setter team. Like there's so many different structures in place, but the one universal thing you have to understand is what is every step. You know what I mean? And so,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. How does someone go through the funnel, and what are you willing to pay for each step in the funnel is super important. And then also, understanding that cheaper cost is not always the best thing, right, through the
Mhm.
funnel. So I'm willing to pay a lot more for a booked call if I know that they're going to show up to the call and be qualified to purchase.
For sure.
Like it means a lot more to me that I get a qualified call or a sales qualified lead to show up to the call, because I know that we can close them. And in the CPA, the cost per acquisition is going to be cheaper in the long run, even if we're paying more for the call. And so that essentially plays into this funnel conversation as well. So second step of the 5-part diagnostic is that we run through the funnel, we write down every step, we look at our conversion rates, and we make some goals based on those funnel steps. That's kind of the second thing we look at. Going into the third step is the creative. We get to the fun part of the advertising game, which is like creative. I don't know. I guess ad creative, right? Is the way we would talk about this. Is the video, the images, the copy, the headlines. Where are we serving them? What placements are they in?
Mhm.
All of that stuff. And this is the third piece, but I mean it's super important. But I will say, like, without the offer and without the funnel, this piece doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
But in the scope of the ad account, this is probably the most important thing, which is what are we doing on the creative side? Is it working? Is it not? So what are some of the things we look for, Matthew, from a creative perspective to see, are we on the right track here, or
Mhm.
does something need fixing?
I think one of the first things I look for is like how it's messaging. Is it emotion based? Is it feature based? What is the method that you are presenting the offer essentially? So, if I'm thinking through what a lead is going to see on the front end and then what they're going to see, for example, on the landing page, is that going to have a strong congruence to convert them on the landing page? So, for example, if you feel really good about your offer and then you realize that your landing page percentage is like killing any sales opportunities, or like your cost per lead is like through the roof, even though you've got a really good click, have a look at what is happening between the ad creative, the copy, the CTA especially, and then what is happening on the landing page, and where is that break in terms of getting a lead to convert on the landing page. So I think messaging congruence is really good
Uh-huh.
in terms of like analyzing what they're seeing. If you're saying to a lead in the ad creative, like, click the link below for a free training, and then you're sending them to essentially a sales page, it's just going to absolutely kill the traffic right there.
Right. And that seems so simple, like, duh, right? But time and time again, we see this mismatch and congruence
Yeah.
from the ad to the landing page. And it can be super simple, right? Because everybody thinks a high click-through rate is best, right?
Mhm.
That like, people that don't know this game, they're like, man, I just want like a 4% unique click-through rate. If I had that, everything would be cheaper. And so in the ad, they're saying crazy stuff like, I'm going to guarantee that you get, 10 clients, or you don't
I'll
pay
give
me
you
anything.
this free bag of money.
Yeah, this is yours. Or they put a hot babe in the ad, and it's like, that people are just clicking because they're trying to see more, and it's not that showing that on the landing page, right? And so essentially, yeah, there's a huge bounce rate or drop off on the landing page, even though you got way more clicks. Well, what this does in the long run is teaches the algorithm, they just like clicks. Let's get them more clicks. And those clicks don't go on to convert. And so, yeah, to your point, Matthew, the congruence between ad and landing page is definitely one of the big pieces we check for on creative.
Mhm.
Um,
For sure.
Caleb, what else do you
I
think?
I want to add to that because I think so going along with the congruence chat, that the ad it also goes deeper to past the landing page, because one of the things that we also find a lot is that when you start talking to, like, let's say that you're running an office as a sales floor or a sales team, when you start chatting with like the top sales rep or the sales manager about, hey, what are people talking about on the phones, what are the pain points that they're bringing up, Like, what are they concerned with when they're trying to make their buying decision? And you start hearing those things, and then you realize we're not talking about any of that stuff on the ad side of things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another missed opportunity because a lot of times
Mhm.
if you're not in alignment with marketing and sales, if the two departments aren't aligned, marketing could be talking about all of these problems over here, and no one's even talking about those things when they get on the phone with the sales
Mm,
reps, right? So just like congruence goes all the way from the ad creative down to after that person swipes their card. And if it's not congruent all the way up until that point, there's going to be a drop off and a
mhm,
breakdown. So,
mhm,
but so carry it all the way to the finish line for sure. And then I think the other thing with creative too is just not just misalignment, but diversity with the type of creative. We will
mhm,
audit so many accounts where we hop in and they're only doing video, or they're only doing a few like graphic images that they've made, but they're not like taking time to actually test like, hey, do we have carousels running? Like, do we have like if you're running on Google too, like are we running in different display placements, and like how can we start to just move or test different types of creative rather than just being
mhm,
like, oh well, this video works, so let's just do a bunch of videos. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It's
mhm.
like there's more to it than that. So that's another thing I would probably point out with creative is just
Also,
are
like,
you trying enough?
the videos or the creative that is in the account, how long have they been running? You know, are you just,
Yeah.
like, riding a horse until it's gonna fall off, basically, and, like, not trying to introduce new winners into the account, even if they're just, like, iterations based on that winner, just, changing up the hook or, changing up the visual hook on the front end. Is it just the same thing that's being run day in, day out for the past 6 months and, "Oh, it seems like it's showing signs of fatigue." Well, yes, it's because everyone has seen that ad constantly and they
Yeah.
wanna see something different.
Creative fatigue is a huge piece of is creative working or not. Yeah, and I think it's hard to actually measure creative fatigue anymore. I think you'll see a few things happen when a creative is fatiguing. The first thing naturally that you'll probably see is CPMs go up a little bit and click through rate go down a little bit, but that's not the full story because typically you're optimizing for conversions. So what I see more often is that the like CPMs and click through rate are still decent, but
Mhm,
conversion cost goes up. So if you're optimizing toward a call, for example, it just so happens now that this creative isn't getting as cheap of cost per call as it used to, even though people are still clicking on it. And essentially what that usually means is that Meta, if we're talking about Meta here, it's going outside of that like main winning audience to try to find more people to convert on that ad, and it's kind of running out of options. And so creative fatigue doesn't always look straightforward. You might be like, well, it's still making us a lot of money. It is, but that leash, you don't know how much you have left of it. And so
mhm,
what's interesting is if you're not testing new stuff to replace that with every week, every other day, whatever it is, the creative fatigue will hit suddenly and you'll be like, "Man, I really wish we had another winner to scale into." And so that's a huge thing we see is like you might ride high on 2 ads that work for a whole year and then all of a sudden they're done and you don't have anything to replace them with. And so
Yeah,
mhm.
that's a huge piece we look at when we're auditing as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
for sure.
The best time to introduce winners is when you're already winning. I don't wait for
Exactly.
something
Yeah,
to
don't get
die.
complacent. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, there's an account where that I'm running where we threw 40 new video ads in last week, and we're doing that every week. We're putting 40 new video ads in every single week, and it's not because we don't have winners and we're not, like, primed and ready, it's because I don't wanna ever run out of winners. How if 5
Yeah,
out of the 40 win, I need to have options to scale into those 5, you know?
for sure.
Uh, so it's hard to get that much creative, but if you have a team that's willing to record them for you, take advantage of it. Um, Sweet. So that's creative. We could talk all day on creative, but that's kind of the third piece we look at. Number four is audience, and audience mismatch particularly. So like when an ad account stops scaling or it's broken, we typically see that we're kind of wasting budget on groups of people that are on paper they look like we're getting a good result, like we're getting good lead costs or maybe even good call costs from that group of people, but they're
Mhm.
not resulting in revenue. So Caleb, what's been your experience there?
Yeah, I think when it comes to audience targeting, a few things come to mind that everybody should be thinking about right now is that first off, Meta and honestly all of these advertising platforms are moving further and further away from like, hey, we want you to just pick all of these different targeting options and we just want to do it all ourselves and control the algorithm and the AI and we tell where your budget goes. So just like start thinking at it from that perspective because that's the way that they want to move this. Okay.
Yeah.
What that doesn't mean is, hey, getting in there and changing my targeting now doesn't work. It's still important. You should still be testing lookalikes. You should still be testing interest. You should still be testing broad, Advantage Plus. Like, test out all of the different options that you have in the account. But what I am saying is that they are moving towards that. And so for audience targeting, it's becoming increasingly more important to do two things. First thing is making sure that your tracking is in place. If your tracking is in place and you're sending event and conversion data back via CAPI to Meta, or you're sending it back accurately to whatever other platform you're running, the platform is going to target more of the right people because it's getting accurate conversion data. So like step number one for us from a targeting perspective is like, are we even giving the platform the data it needs to find the right people in the first place? So that's the big one. The second one is something that people have talked about for a while, but is like, we can't forget about it, is that like, it's what we were talking about before with the creative. Is your creative actually speaking to the audience that you want? Because I can tell you right now, if you have killer tracking that's sending CAPI back, and your messaging is on point and it's resonating with the right audience, the platform's going to find the people. It really is. It's going to find the people. Still test. I'm not saying to like just throw away the other stuff, but those are the big like levers right now. And if you're missing out on those two things and you're still just focused on like, let me just upload 10 new lookalikes and not do those other things, you're kind of falling behind. And that's not the way things are trending. So
yeah, I mean, like, and I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'll position it as a hot take. I don't know what the advertising world thinks about this, but what I think is audience targeting matters so little now. Like if I were to say a very hot take, it's that just go broad targeting all the time and feed it the right data, and you'll have a lot better results than segmenting out audiences at the ad set level. The reason is pretty simple. Advantage Plus on Meta and just Google's AI is the same way. It's going to apply that to everything moving forward. Even if you still have an account that's like grandfathered in and you're able to like not use Advantage Plus and exclude whatever audiences, over time, like in a year from now, you're going to look back and be like, man, I wish I cracked the code on Advantage Plus, because that's all it's going to be in the future. Like this is the way it's going. And so to Caleb's point, in order to still find your right people, you have to feed it the right signals, who's converting, make sure it's clear data, and you're actually optimizing toward the event you want, not just like vanity events. And essentially, the creative has to speak to your audience the right way. Like, but those two are the two levers you still have control of and will continue to have control of, even if they say, hey, sorry, advertisers, no more audience targeting. It's just give us your money, right? And that's the direction it's going into. So you have to be able to control the variables. Yeah, which is actually, that's point 5 as well. So 4 and 5, audience mismatch, and then attribution and optimization. Those are like kind of the two steps we look at. Audience mismatch is kind of like lumped into attribution now, but
for sure,
there are still things you can do from an audience perspective. And one of the things I want to actually hit on really quick is retargeting, like hot and warm retargeting, because there is still a world in which like top of funnel intent is super broad, and then middle of funnel, bottom of funnel is more of like a retargeting play. Specifically, like one of the things that I've been tinkering around with is like video view audience buckets. It's just like, hey, if you have some top of funnel ads that are really crushing and they're video and people are watching percentages of those videos, like retarget the people who are watching those videos with middle of funnel or bottom of funnel ads, higher intent, more educational, whatever it is. Like get the right message in front of those people, because if they've watched 95% of your videos but have not yet become a lead or a call, like it's just a matter of time. So get message in front of those people. But yeah, from an audience mismatch perspective, really what I'm referring to, and we'll talk about this in the case study coming up, is like not all leads or all calls are created equal. So people will opt in assuming that like your thing is right for them, and then they'll be in the total wrong audience demographic. And those are the things we want to try to avoid.
For sure.
Matthew, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think through like the optimization side of things as well. One small case study that came to mind for me was one of the clients I work with. They were optimizing primarily top of funnel. They were driving optimized towards lead, and they were getting a 2.95x at the time, which was like a drop off in revenue. And then we had we made a decision to essentially flip the funnel after the audit, we said we're going to flip the funnel optimization and optimize towards purchase, because there was a purchase event that we could actually like put it through. So rather than optimizing towards, who the pixel thinks would opt in, it was optimizing towards people the pixel thinks will purchase what
Mm-hmm.
the offer was,
Is this
essentially.
is like a webinar funnel?
A webinar funnel, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a webinar funnel. So
So the first event they hit, just for the people at
mhm.
home, the first event they hit is lead, right? Like they're opting in, and then after they opt in, there's something they can purchase, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like a low ticket intro package that preps them for the webinar, essentially,
Mhm.
which is still part of the same funnel. And obviously, you can also just drop it back through Conversions API if you wanted to do it that way too.
Right.
But just switching from optimizing towards lead after the audit to optimize towards purchase turned the 2.95 returns into a 4.5 like the next month.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
So dope.
yeah,
Also, I'm
and it's
willing to bet lead costs went up.
lead costs went up,
Yeah.
and they were like, "That's fine. We're making
Yeah.
more money."
What would you rather have, business owner? Would you rather have more people who aren't going to buy your stuff in your webinar, or more people
Mhm.
who are going to buy your stuff in your webinar?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's simple.
That was honestly one of the conversations we had, was like they had goals set around how many attendees were going to show up each webinar, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, what percentage of those are going to close?
Right.
What percentage are then eventually going to ascend on the back end through a mentorship and that side of things. So just sort of reorienting how you want to present your offer, and who, like, again, kind of going back to the vanity metrics. A cheap
Mhm.
lead cost looks great,
Yeah.
but if it's not going to make you money, then it's all for nothing. So if you can just accept that there's going to be less people, but there's going to be more people with that intent,
Mhm.
it really shouldn't be an argument, and it wasn't, and that's the result.
And they doubled their profit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I find really interesting too on this topic, and this is for you if you're hiring an agency, or you have a media buyer that's like outsourced from your team, or even someone internally on your team who is continually coming back to you and being like, yeah, but lead cost is great, or yeah, but call cost is great. Right? There's this defense mechanism that paid marketers have a lot of the time, which is like, if revenue's down or profits down or whatever, and you come to the media buying team and you say, hey, like, what's going on? If their response is, yeah, but fill in the blank vanity metric looks good, right? Yeah, but
Mhm.
click-through rate looks really good, or yeah, but lead cost is great, or yeah, but we're getting a bunch of calls booked. Like, that is a red flag that they are not optimizing toward revenue for your business, right? Because if you're feeding the right stuff back to the pixel, there's we should be able to sacrifice those vanity metrics for improved revenue on the back end. It's not always cut and dry. It's not always super simple. Like, a lot of the time, a marketer will come back to you and be like, yeah, but call cost has not changed in the last 7 days. You're just not closing the deals. And maybe there's a case for that. But from our perspective, like, blaming sales is almost never the answer, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's got to be we got to be on the same wavelength between marketing and sales in order for the offer to scale.
And I
For
think
sure.
that's where attribution comes in as well. So, we use ROAS pretty like holistically across all of our accounts, essentially, which gives us the visibility down to the ad level, of what is actually not just driving the clicks and all the platform data you can get, but the actual like end result revenue. What can you
Right.
tie it to? And then how do you scale that, rather than just sort of throwing like a broad amount of money everywhere? If you can actually pinpoint where the money is coming in and go deeper than just, the optimizing on the platform,
Mhm.
then that's just going to, drive the revenue even further.
And I
Right.
would say the last piece of that conversation, like, if you've stuck with us to this point and you're still tracking with like the lead, not all leads are created equal. What you really need to do is figure out a system to where you can filter down to qualified leads, qualified apps, qualified calls, whatever it is for your business. So essentially saying like, hey, if we get 100 leads, I need to make sure I ask them all the right questions, get the right information from them to know, are they right for my offer? Because
Mhm.
what that will allow your marketing team to do is actually optimize their ads for the qualified leads. And the platform over time is going to just find more of those qualified leads and less of the tire kickers, essentially, over time. Yeah.
And it's crucial to do that because if especially in the high ticket world, a lot of times volume is not a thing in terms of like how many people are purchasing the high ticket thing. And so for
Mhm.
example, even if you've got like, 10 new high ticket customers every week, that's really not enough for Meta to learn, especially if you're running multiple campaigns and each one is getting a different conversion or whatever. What I'm trying to get at is you have to have enough volume of the event that you want to send back to Meta. So to Dakota and Matthew's point, if you find something in the middle that's like qualifying event, like an application or a low ticket purchase or whatever will have enough volume but still speaks to quality, that's really kind of the thing you want to shoot for. So
Yeah, I would say you want at least 50 in a week is
yeah,
probably like the barometer. It's not perfect, but that gives you a close estimate of like, okay, cool, Meta can find me more of those in a pretty easy way. Yeah. So awesome. So just to recap those diagnostics that we run through, we look at the offer first, we look at the funnel next. We're going to look at the creative in the account after that, the audience targeting, and then finally like the attribution and data side of it. How do we feed the data back into the ad account? And between those 5 things, honestly, we have a really good like finger on the pulse of, can we scale this thing? What needs to be fixed to scale? So I would look at those 5 things. I would pick 1 or 2 and say, hey, these are what we're attacking first. We're going to just rehaul the entire creative in the account, or we're going to take the funnel and flip it on its head, like Matthew said, or we're going to just switch the optimization of it. Honestly, like more times than not, when we get into a new ad account, it's so funny because all we have to do is switch like lead to schedule on the optimization of it, and we just see results get better across the board. Like that has happened probably a dozen times in the last 4 years that we've been running this agency. It's like
like
we just switch the optimization of it, messaging tweaks, and then like the results just 2x. And you're like, okay, Meta is actually really good at finding the people that you want it to find, you know?
Yep.
So really cool. But I want to talk really quickly just to wrap this up on a real life case study that we've kind of gone through in the last month. And so a client came to us in this this client is crushing it, and they're in our Charlene's Angels pod here at Ad Class. We have some interesting pod names. But this is a fun one because they came in a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I can't remember. Time flies when you're having fun. And they were running primarily Meta lead forms. And so as I just said those words, you either had a knee-jerk reaction of like, "Ugh, I'd never say Meta lead forms again," or you're in the other camp, which is like, Meta lead forms, yeah, that's all that you can really do, right? It's like one or the other, right? Like we either have people that just exclusively do Meta lead forms, or people who have like tried it and absolutely hate them. Um, and in this case, they were coming into us with like really good low cost per leads, right? So like, lead costs looked incredible because lead forms are pretty dang frictionless. You just click one button and it says submit, basically. They were also coming to us with only 2 or 3 winning creatives. They had some like really good viral video, kind of like hero creatives that were working pretty well. But they were essentially like, we don't know what to do from here. It's not really scaling well. Like we'll have good weeks, bad weeks. And we just need help kind of like systemizing and getting past the scale wall. And so unqualified leads were leading to like bad sales conversions. And we knew that was kind of the first start. So what we did were 2 things. We found the 2 constraints, right? The 2 things we found through the diagnostic were creative overhaul, right? We needed a lot more creative. 2 videos is not enough to scale an ad account, especially if they've been running for a while. So we started there. We scripted, edited a bunch of new angles that were speaking to the same sort of pain points. Like those 2 angles were really good. We just needed to create variations of them so that we could kind of get into new segments of the audience pool. So that was number 1. And then number 2, we got them away from Meta lead forms. So I'm not going to say Meta lead forms never works. There's a time and a place. Like lead gen people out there probably swear by them because you can get a lot of leads, a good volume of leads for super cheap. Caleb, I know you actually have run some on some like local lead generation stuff with really good success, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah, it's nice for local legion stuff specifically because again, the volume's there and a lot of local businesses don't have huge budgets. So meta lead forms can go a long way on a small
yeah.
budget. And honestly, when you get really crazy targeted with a local ad, it's just easier to get a quality lead than it is when you're
Right.
going broad US based, right? So
100%. So there's a time and a place for the lead forms, but in this case, like they were getting a lot of leads, but very few of them were actually going on to close. So what we did was just built a real funnel. So our sort of the other constraint we already talked through is like the funnel side. So instead of like collecting an opt-in and just texting them, which is what they were doing on the lead forms, we were actually sending people to a landing page, which educated them a little bit more about the offer and then they could opt in on that landing page, and then we would text them. So literally just adding a little bit of education on a landing page and getting out of the lead form allowed us to do two things. One, educate the lead, but two, now we can optimize for deeper funnel, because lead form in and of itself only ever optimizes toward lead, right? And so if you're just looking for leads, Meta's like, oh, I can get you leads, baby. I can get you leads. They're like, I know every email address in the United States. Let me get you some of them. And so obviously, like, you can get a lot of them, but you don't want them unless they're going to convert. So what we did was we switched to a funnel, and then we started optimizing towards schedule, because the end goal after these people get a text message is to go in and book a call. And so if we can optimize toward that book a call event, we know Meta is going to get us a lot closer to our ICP, our ideal client profile, because we're optimizing toward deeper funnel stuff. And so between those two things, the client actually sent us a message last weekend and said, hey, this was our best paid marketing week ever. Our calendars are fully booked out. And we actually have like real data we can use to scale. So that's just a quick case study of how we use this framework to kind of like come into an ad account, switch things around, and honestly make some minor tweaks, like not huge changes, and totally transform the landscape of a company that we're working with. So that is it for us today. Anything you guys want to add before we sign off today?
No, just stoked that you guys are here and listening and hanging out with us. Obviously, want to keep bringing the value. If there's anything that you guys want to hear from us or things that you want us to cover, maybe you got questions about an offer you're on, or just things that you wonder about because you're not at an agency and you want to know that our perspective on it, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And just thanks for listening as always. Appreciate you guys.
How about a
Absolutely.
British sign off, Matthew?
I can do a British sign off. Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate you guys listening to episode 30 of Ad Talk. Okay, I was busting up. Thanks. Just throw me off entirely.
No, I need like a saying. That only you would know.
Oh, okay.
You
Okay.
and the rest of the UK.
All right. Okay. If you're just about to head up the apples and pears and sling your hook, then thank you for having a gander at what we've had to talk about. We really fancy a butchers whenever we can, so just thank you. And drop us a link if you need anything. And this has been Ad Talk by Ad Class.
Well done.
Let's go. All right. Appreciate you all. We'll see you next time. Peace.